You walk into a hobby shop looking for some paints. A bright orange rack full of various AK Interactive products confronts you. Where do you start? Which products do you buy first? This video explores the range of modelling products available from AK Interactive to give you an idea of what to buy first and what to leave until later. In my opinion, this should be your first purchase. Although expensive at about $100, it is well worth the investment. This book contains full colour step-by-step instructions on the various stages of painting and weathering models, which paint and weathering products to use, and lots of photos to inspire your creativity. This book starts with the initial steps to lay down basic colours using AK Interactive paint modulation sets. Then it builds up more layers through washes that begin to create rust effects, through using oil paints to modify the underlying base colours in subtle ways, adding chipping effects and scratches in various ways, using paintbrush strokes, chipping fluid, hairspray and sponging techniques, using their famous streaking grimes to add rust effects, spilt fuel and oil, rain marks, dust and dirt streaks, through to painting wood and metal in realistic ways and adding dirt and mud effects that not only add colour but also volume to the weathering. The next purchase you should consider as essential is a good quality surface primer. The AK Interactive primers are acrylic primers and ready for the airbrush right out of the bottle. Which primer colour to acquire is completely up to you and the model's base colours. Just make sure that you thoroughly shake the bottle up before using the primers, as the contents do settle over time. So I have the book and some primer. Now what? Here I'm showing two models which I've used various AK Interactive products on. The model in the foreground is an SDKFZ 234/2 Puma, and the model in the background is an SDKFZ 11 Famo tractor, both models being 1/56 scale for bolt action. I'm still working on the model in the background, but both give a good idea at the kinds of effects you can achieve. Zenithal highlighting using paint modulation sets, scratch surfaces using a paintbrush and sponge, realistic tyres, rust effects and use of various streaking grimes. The Puma was base coated using German Dunkelgelb paint modulation set. This is a set of 6 paints of various shades to produce a realistic German Dunkelgelb colour. These paint sets are acrylic base, so cleanup is easy using water. The paints are fast drying and have a really nice matte finish. After a thorough shake, you can use them through the airbrush or drop straight onto a wet palette with minimal thinning for use with a brush. The next step after base coating was painting 8 road wheels. Rubber tyres in real life aren't black but dark and light shades of grey depending on how scuffed, muddy or dusty they are. Thus I found the AK track and wheel sets very handy. The SDKFZ 11 tractor here is still a work in progress. Even at this early stage I've used a number of AK Interactive paint sets. This vehicle has been base coated using the AK Interactive German Panzer Grey paint modulation sets. I've also used the tracks and wheels paint set to do the front tyres, with the tracks having various rust colours applied on random parts through dry brushing. There are a number of other paint modulation sets available, and which ones you purchase will depend on the models you're painting. Here I'm showing the US Olive Drab paint modulation set. Recently they've been introducing new products like this Flesh and Skin Colours paint set, which I've used to great success on my bolt action early war German infantry. Once you've base coated your vehicle, it's time to decide whether a camouflage scheme will be included. If you know the era you're aiming for, early war, mid-war, late war or even modern, you can purchase a paint set to cover the camouflage colours of that era. Here I'm showing the German war colours 1937 to 44. That's 6 paints in the paint set, which is really nice. As the war progressed, the camouflage schemes grew more complex with different standards of the same colour, for instance Dunkelgelb having multiple iterations of the same RAL 7028 colour standard for instance. And yet more camouflage colours. Yes, I couldn't resist acquiring them all, especially when they're only $25 for 6 paints. There are a number of AK Interactive paint sets that are optional but provide a great base to begin the weathering stages of the build. I'm totally in love with the Tracks and Wheels paint set, and when you look at rust it's not one colour but a multitude of tans, reds, browns and black. Do you want to go fishing through the paint racks trying to decide which individual bottles are good rust colours, or just pick up one box and you're covered? The bonus with these paint sets is on the back. On the back of this box are a number of photo swatches showing various rust patches and streaks and the colouring of them. They're real world examples, but you can see what you need to do to make rust on your models looking lifelike. Up until now, there's been no need to use anything other than water for cleanup. If you want to play with the real stars of the AK Interactive product range, you need to start using the Enamel ranges, which means adding white spirit to your painting palette and brush cleanup using white spirit or mineral turpentine, both of which have very strong odours. I don't recommend you use your good brushes for these weathering sets, as the Enamel, white spirit, cleanup and some weathering techniques are brutal on natural sable brushes. You will ruin that $30 Winsor & Newton Series 7 brush in no time. Thus, I'm recommending you buy some of the AK Interactive brushes. These are plastic bristle brushes designed to stand up to the rigours of model weathering for longer, and they're rather cheap too. You'll want different size brushes to help with the stumping of streaking grimes, applying filters and using oil paints. There are various enamel paint sets available matched to themes in much the same way as the acrylic paint sets. Here I'm showing the DAC weathering set, a set of 3 enamel paints. An enamel wash to pin wash and provide panel shading, a light dust filter which adds a very light dust colour to fade the dunkelgelb, and a streaking grime colour to complement the dunkelgelb base colour. Most of the enamel pots include an example of how the effect turns out printed on the label. There are a number of these enamel pots in the range, consisting of rust washes, rust streaks, general grime streaks, specific streaking colours for various base colours, for instance Panzer Grey in this photo, and the end results once you master the dark art of streaking. Enamel washes are not designed for streaking grime. They're a thinned down version of specific colours designed to run into cracks and panel lines or pool on surfaces and corners to provide some shading effects. Because these are enamels, the drying time is much greater, so it's possible to fine-tune the wash using white spirit and a brush or cotton bud. Filters are thinned to the point where there's not much pigment in them at all. They provide a very controlled way of subtly altering the overall colour of an area, like giving an area a faded, dusty look. They are also great for blending modulated paint layers together for smoother transitions. All of the above acrylic and enamel paints add colour to a model, but not volume to the colour. So how do you simulate clumps of mud and earth stuck to tank traps, or wet mud splattered all over a tank hull? To give some volume to any weathering effect, you can mix in some plaster of Paris to some enamel on a paint palette. If you want to simulate mud, you mix in lots of plaster of Paris and make a gooey, lumpy substance which is then applied to the model. AK also have a number of pigments available in very fine powder form. These are applied directly to the model and fixed to the model using pigment fixer. This is fast acting stuff, so you need to be ready to work right off the bat. The pigments are very flat luster, and so you can do lots of effects in very controlled ways, like adding dust deposits to corners. Mix the pigments in with white spirit and your working time increases enormously, so you can flow the pigments into corners of panels. If the above is starting to sound complicated, you could acquire these. A new product line from AK, these enamels already have plaster of Paris mixed in. They're not designed for serious clumping mud effects, but now we don't need to think about adding volume to our dust effects. These pots have colour and volume right off the bat. Check out the new AFV line of weathering products next time you're staring at that orange shelf of goodies. So to sum up, start with a book, buy a bottle of primer, a paint modulation set, a camouflage paint set, a paint set for tyres and tracks, and maybe a paint set for accessories. Then when you're ready, buy some AK brushes, a few streaking grimes, some white spirit, and get streaking. Once you're a master of the above, branch out, go all in, and get down and dirty amongst the tracks and undercarriage with mud and dirt. Have fun and good luck.